So this is what we're going to do this evening. So we're going to get into our level 1 pre-course workbook, and we're going to be working inside of exercise number 1. So exercise number 1 is all about results and the idea of how can you create lasting results in your life. So inside the workbook, you're going to be looking in pages 6, 7, and 8. All right, and so this is all about results. So we're going to start with, this is going to be, could be pretty basic for some of you if you've heard this content before, or if you're familiar with it. But those people who are new, this is back to basics. I tried to make this as easy as I could just to help you understand, because our belief system is actually pretty complex. And so I've broken it down as much as I can. I really want everyone to be able to create value from this. And so that's really what I'm doing. So we're going to start with the beliefs inside of this formula that's on page 8. So a belief. So we're going to start off with a definition. So what is it? So it's any thought or idea that we hold about ourselves and the world around us that we accept to be true. So there could be a number of categories that we could put the beliefs in. There's a number of classifications. So we're going to go through them. So to start is that beliefs actually can be conscious or they can be unconscious. Okay. And so we're going to talk more about that in just a few slides. So just bear with me. Beliefs also can be positive or negative. And then the last one is that beliefs can also be supporting and they can be supporting and limiting. So we're going to dive into all 6 of these. I've got some examples for you so we can really get a grasp of how complex really our belief system is. So let's start with conscious and unconscious. And so I really love this analogy of the iceberg. What they say about the iceberg is that we actually would have about 10% of the iceberg that's visible and 90% that isn't visible. And so the same thing it goes for your belief system is you actually could have about 10% of your beliefs that are conscious. And so that leaves like 90% of your beliefs that are unconscious. So conscious beliefs would be beliefs you're aware of. Unconscious, of course, those that you are not aware of. All right, so we're going to go a little further and we're going to talk about positive and negative beliefs. So a belief, we're going to work with the same example through this. And so I want to work with this idea of relationships or certain beliefs about relationships, because our beliefs about relationships can vary. So you can, to start, is that you can have a belief about relationships that they create happiness. Relationships cause happiness, right? So we're going to put that in the category of a positive belief. Or if it's the opposite, relationships cause pain. So I know myself is that I spent a large part of my development working on this belief myself, because I actually did have a belief that relationships cause pain. So on to the next is supporting and limiting. So we have beliefs that support us and limit us. And so if you look on the same idea is if we put relationships cause happiness, that would be considered a supporting belief. A limiting version of that will be relationships cause pain. So before I move on, I just want to talk about this idea of a limiting belief. So it might be a term you're aware of and it might not be. But what a limiting belief is, if you've never heard about it, it is a belief really that's limiting the results in your life. And so sometimes you could be aware of it and sometimes not. So that kind of brings us here, is that this is kind of all the classifications that we can use right now. So this is the way this plays out. This is why the belief system is so complex, is that our conscious beliefs is that they can be positive, right? You can have great positive conscious beliefs, which are also supporting. Conscious beliefs can also be limiting. You might be very aware of a belief that you have and that it limits the results that you have in your life. That's possible. A conscious belief can also be negative. And so now let's go to the other side. Let's look at the unconscious beliefs. Unconscious beliefs can be negative. Unconscious beliefs can be limiting. So also unconscious beliefs can be positive and unconscious beliefs can be supporting. So all of that is possible. So when you're diving into this workbook and when you're looking for your at your belief systems, or just trying to create awareness on it, then you want to be aware of, if you discover a new unconscious belief, is consider, does the belief support me or not? Because it's possible that that unconscious belief could support you, or it's possible it could limit you. So actually, you get to be the judge. It's your life, it's your belief system. And by the way, if you're new or you're just popping on and you're interested in the workbook and you don't have it, is that you should have a link inside of the comments if you wanted to take a peek at it and see what we're talking about here. All right, so that's the belief system, or that's the idea of beliefs. Let's move on here now to this idea of the attitude. So this is again the formula. Spoiler alert, it's on page 8 of your workbook. So attitude. So definition. It's a feeling that is generally judged positive or negative based upon your belief system. And so that's really the important part, is that we get our attitudes from our belief system. So depending on what the belief is, our attitude might be positive or negative. So a really good indicator, if you experience that you have a negative attitude about something, you could have a belief that you're aware of that's not supporting you, or you could have an unconscious belief that you're not aware of. But it's a good little red flag to think, okay, what do I not know right now about my belief system? What should I have a look at? Okay, so let's just walk it through a little bit. So if I have same example, with the idea of relationships will bring happiness or end in happiness, is that if you believe that, then you would have a positive attitude towards relationships, right? And the opposite is that if you believe that they bring pain, then you may have a negative attitude towards relationships. All right, so that is all about attitudes. So let's move on to behaviors. Let's have a look at the impact of our beliefs, then which creates our attitudes, and then now onto our behaviors. So as far as behaviors, let's start here. A behavior is anything that you do or you do not do as dictated by our beliefs and our attitudes. And so that do not do is actually really important, because when I think of behaviors, or when I used to think of behaviors, I used to think it's the things that I do, but it's also the things that you do not do. So let's have a look. So same example about relationships. So when a person with a positive attitude about relationships based on their belief system about the happiness they cause would probably actively pursue new friendships. But the do not do is that if a person with a negative attitude about a relationship based on a belief about the pain they cause would probably not actively pursue new friendships. And so if there's something you desire, but you're actually not actively pursuing it, it would be really good to have a look at that. It could be another indication of something that could be a red flag. You should check back with your belief system. So once we have a belief upon which we develop an attitude, our behaviors are dictated to us. So that's the final piece to this. So we know that our beliefs can be positive or negative, conscious or unconscious, supporting or limiting. They will create a positive or negative attitude based on what we experience. Then it will dictate our behaviors in that sense. So there's a little bit more to this that isn't necessarily it's not in the workbook, is that all of these things are learned. So what's interesting is that this is what I find interesting about it. Our belief system, they say, is created between the ages of 6 and 12. So I'm 40 years old. That means that if I did not do any work in creating awareness around my belief system, I'm walking around this planet with a belief system that could have been established between the ages of 6 and 12, which is like, gosh, if I'm not getting the results that I kind of want in my life or desire in my life, or if I feel like I'm kind of hitting the same wall over and over again, it's a belief system. It could be your belief system. So the idea with this, though, is that we need to be able to create some awareness around what the beliefs are and decide, are they working or not? And from there is that you actually get a choice. So when I say, are they working or not, you get a choice to deem is this a belief I want to continue to work with? Or is this a belief that maybe I want to work on, or maybe that I want to change, right? And how you can do that. And so just like this was learned, or your belief system was learned, is that it can be relearned. There are opportunities for that. And so it's my goal inside of the workbook that we created is to be able to give some practical exercises for you to really kind of discover yourself. And so the relearning part, some of that could actually come through the workbook. So this was pretty profound to me. So the idea of on the other side of the wall is all the results that you want in your life. So that could be the promotion that you're trying to get at work. That could be trying to lose 50 pounds, or it could be, leaving the corporate world and getting into the self-employment world, or your great relationships on the other side of the wall. Is that the results that you want are on the other side of the wall. And the reality is that standing on a bunch of ladders, or standing on a bunch of beliefs that aren't supporting you, they aren't helping you get over the wall, but really it could just be a modification of some beliefs that helps you stand that ladder up and get what it is that you want. So let's talk about, how do we relearn? So I've provided a tool in the sense of the workbook where you can actually create some awarenesses to start. And then the next thing is that, so the workbook, again, if you don't have it, is have a look in the comments. There should be a link for you to download that workbook. Another thing we're going to talk about here today is a book called Change or Die. So I want to keep giving you guys resources that can help you and support you. If you're one of those who likes to learn independently, this is a great book, and we're going to talk about the principles of this book for some time here. So, but there's one other option though too, is that if you're one of those people that aren't so interested in doing it on your own, and you really just know that you need help and support, is I'm just going to post this here, and you guys can decide what you want to do with it. So this is a link inside. If you're on your computer, you can use this QR code and you can book just a 15-minute call with me, and I can talk to you about the level 1. Or you can book the 15-minute call. There's a link also in the comments. So that's an option too. Some people know that they want to enroll support sooner, and some people actually really like to work independently. So my intent is that both and are covered, right? So let's talk about Alan Deutschman's book. So great book. But the premise of the book is, what he talks about is that for most people, they will only change if they're in crisis. And so he starts off by talking about 3 F's: facts, fear, and force. And so he talks about people will change. They'll step to the plate of change if they have the right facts or fear or force in their life. So it's kind of like, it just reminds me of, smoking. I grew up in the 90s. Everybody smoked. There were smoking sections in the restaurant. And then they started producing all these results about smoking can create undesirable health results, right? And so they're very undesirable. So they pump out a bunch of facts, and then people are like, okay, I better quit. Okay, I'm going to quit. Or they also instilled fear with a lot of those facts too, which drove people to quit. And then force is the part of like, I mean, who hasn't been in this experience? Like, if you don't change, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. And so that's the idea of force. It's like, really, when we're in crisis, when we're up against the wall and we have nothing else to do, is that people will look at, okay, let's see what changes. And so his book is about, sorry, I'm one slide ahead. So this is the idea of the book, is that even when doctors say change, you need to change your life or you're going to die. And so he has some examples of that, of heart patients inside the book that we're going to talk about. And so heart patients are told, basically, if you don't change your life, you're going to die. You need to improve your health and all of that. When they actually set out to make changes, is what he talks about in the book is that only 90% after they make the change fall back into the old ways, where they actually didn't create lasting change. It was just temporary, because their motivation for that change was really based on fear of they were going to die, right? And so inside of the book, he talks about 3 R's, is that what we need to create change is we need to be able to relate to the people who are around us. We need to be able to repeat the behaviors, and we need to be able to reframe some beliefs that aren't working. So it looks like this. So it's 3 circles like this, where it relates at the top. And so if you want to create changes, you need a support system. It's just the way it is. You need a support system. You need to be able to create behaviors that you can repeat over and over again. And then you need to be able to reframe those beliefs that you have about yourself and the world that are not supporting the desired result. And so it seems pretty, the idea of finding people to relate to seems pretty doable. The idea of repeating behaviors, like I feel like that's a part of what we do when we want to create change anyways. It's the idea of reframing the beliefs that we may not be aware of. And so if you continue to work through the workbook, continue to show up for these videos, will help you in creating some awareness around some of those beliefs. Because this is the complexity of our belief system. It's just complex. It can be any number of these things, right? So at the end of the day, is you need to dive down and see and create some awareness in your belief systems. So I have a couple of stories from inside of the book. So he wanted to prove that, in fact, this relate, repeat, and reframe works. He wanted to prove it works. And so he had a trial. Actually, what's interesting is an insurance company actually approached him and asked him to do this trial, because insurance companies in the United States are really invested in their patients or their clients creating lasting change. And so they asked him to do this trial where he would put people inside of this formula. And what happened is that rather than 90% defaulting back within the first year, it was actually in the 80th percentile of people that maintained the change when he put them in the trial, where they were able to relate to each other. They gave them behaviors about health that they could repeat again and again and again. And then they actually worked with, inside of all these people, with reframing some of the beliefs that they have about themselves that don't work. And they were able to create and maintain change. Another example that he talks about in the book is that there's this Delancey Street program that's actually in San Francisco that worked with felons. And the idea is that, if you're in a prison system, and you're basically creating this formula inside of the prison system, because you can relate to all your inmates. You have very repetitive behavior of everything that's in there. And you are taught or told by the guards over and over again, like, who you are, that you're a con, that you're nothing, that you don't deserve anything. And so he did the flip side, is he put them into the street, in a middle class street in San Francisco, with the community support. And that's the key, is that they had the community support. And so they all worked together where they could relate to each other, where they understood that their goal was to not be ex-cons, but to be functioning members of society. And so they can relate to each other with that. And then they created repetitive behavior inside of that included buying their groceries, that included working, that included all of the behaviors that somebody in a law-abiding community would follow. And then they also had this idea of reframe, where they worked as well with the people in the community, and they created this support group for them, where the community got to say to them, we know who you are, we know where you came from, and we know that's not you anymore. So they could reframe who they were, or their belief system around who they were, so they actually could create some success inside of, being a law-abiding citizen. And so in this program, it was like just shy of 70% that were successful, where the reoffending people before they did the trial was like 80% that reoffended and didn't create lasting success once they got out. So it's another example of him applying these principles to be able to create change. So that's what I have right now on Alan Deutschman. And so what I just wanted to leave you with is a couple of action steps. So first, at Personal Best Seminars, we support in healing people's motivation structure so that they are no longer motivated by fear, pain, and loss, but compelled by love, contribution, and mission. And that's really my desire for everyone participating in this workbook and participating in our programs. So a couple of action steps for you guys before we close today. So the first action step, if you have not downloaded that workbook, it's in the comments. Get it downloaded, and then you can start working on it. Check in with us next week. We're going to be doing another exercise online just like this, where you can work practically with what's inside of the book. And then if you miss it, don't worry about it. We'll have it on replay. You can pop in and watch it. And if you're one that needs to just talk some things through, inside of the comment feed, there's a spot where you can book an appointment with me, and then I can spend some 15 minutes with you and just chat about where it is that you're at, what you discovered, and I can help you kind of move forward if you guys want to move forward from there.